everyone, welcome back. So, before I start with today's session officially, let me first ask you a few questions. Okay, so think about these companies and try to guess what type of company they are. Okay, so firstly, Zomato. Of course, we know it's a food delivery company which is listed on the stock exchange, but you need to identify what type of a company it is. Okay. Next, what type of a company is Infosys? Of course, it's a large IT company where lakhs of investors are holding shares. But what type of company is it? And let's say there's a small consulting business which is owned by just one entrepreneur. Now, what type of company is this? Or in the first place, is it even a company? Now, what about Tata Trust? It works for charitable activities. So, is this also company? If yes, then which type of company? And then what about LIC, which is owned and controlled by the government? What type of company is it? Can you answer all these questions? If yes, then of course you know what are the different types of companies. If no, then you may have to listen to this session today. Okay, so all these are of course companies, but Companies Act goes a step further to classify these companies into different types depending on their structure, ownership, size, and objectives. Okay, now understanding these classifications is important because each type of company has different legal requirements, privileges, and also restrictions. So, in today's session, we will explore the various types of companies recognized under the Companies Act 2013. First, let's understand about one of the most common forms of companies in India, that is the private company. So, as per the Companies Act 2013, a private company is a company which restricts the right to transfer its shares and limits the number of its members to 200 and prohibits inviting public to subscribe for its shares. Now, some of the key features that you have to note here is the minimum number of members required to form a private company are 2 and it can have a maximum of 200. Now, shares cannot be freely traded publicly in private companies and it cannot even raise money from the general public. Okay. Now, let's take a real life example. Now, many startups in their early stages operate as private limited companies. For example, Flipkart Private Limited when it initially started, or even Byju's Think and Learn Private Limited. Now, these companies raise money from venture capital investors and private investors, but they do not sell shares to the general public. Okay. Now, let us look at public companies, which are typically large corporations. Okay. So, as per the definition given in the Companies Act, a public company is a company that is not a private company and has no restriction on the transfer of shares and can invite the public to subscribe to its shares. So, some of the key features of this company is it requires a minimum number that is 7 members have to be there to start a public company, and there is no limit on the maximum number of members. And also shares can be traded on the stock exchange and it can raise funds from the general public. Now, some of the well-known public companies in India include Reliance Industries Limited, Infosys Limited, Zomato Limited. Now, all of these are some of the well-known public companies in India. And when you buy shares of these companies on the stock market, you actually are becoming the shareholders of these companies. And this is why public companies can raise huge amount of capital from investors worldwide. Okay. Now, let's understand about government companies. So, as per the definition, A government company is a company in which at least 51% of the share capital is held by the government. The government may be central government, state government, or both together. Now, some of the key features you need to note here is although these companies follow corporate structures like private companies, they are controlled by the government. Okay. Now, some of the well-known government companies in India include ONGC, which stands for Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, and some many more. Okay. Now, these companies play an important role in the strategic sectors of the company. Now, let's understand one of the most newly added type of company, that is one person company. So, the one person company concept was introduced under the Companies Act 2013 to promote entrepreneurship and formal business structure. Earlier, an individual entrepreneur had only one option, sole proprietorship, but however, it involved unlimited liability. Now, OPC allows a single person to enjoy the benefits of the company structure but with limited liability. Now, some of the key features of OPC are an OPC can have only one member, but however, the law requires the member to appoint a nominee who will become the member if the original member dies or becomes incapable of managing the company. Okay, and also, like any other company, an OPC has a separate legal identity from that of its owner. It means an OPC company can own its own property, can enter into contracts, can sue or can be sued in its own name. And also, the best part is the liability of that one member is limited to the unpaid amount on shares that is held by him. Okay, which means the personal assets of the members are generally protected. Okay, but a very unique feature of OPC is that it is mandatory to appoint a nominee. The nominee's name should be mentioned in the memorandum of association. Okay, and also, as per the Companies Act rules, only a natural person who is an Indian citizen and resident in India can incorporate an OPC. A person can be a member of only one OPC at a time. Okay? For example, imagine a chartered accountant starting a financial consulting firm alone. Now, instead of starting a sole proprietorship and attracting unlimited liability, now he has an option to incorporate an OPC which will provide him legal recognition, also limited liability with better credibility with the clients. Okay. There is another important category of companies which is called as Section 8 companies, okay, which is nothing but a non-profit company. Now, these companies are formed not for profit but to promote charitable or social objectives. Now, the objective of these companies are maybe in order to promote education or to promote art and culture, or maybe for charity and social welfare, and even for environment protection. But unlike other companies, profits are not distributed as dividends in such companies. Instead, profits must be reinvested to promote the objectives of the company. Okay. So now many NGOs and charitable organizations register as Section 8 companies. For example, Teach for India, microfinance and social impact organizations. Now, these companies operate professionally like corporate organizations, but their purpose is social impact rather than profit. Okay. Now, let's understand another important topic called as small companies. Okay. So, the concept of small companies was introduced in order to support small businesses. Okay. Now, a small company means a company other than a public company where the paid up share capital should be less than or equal to 10 crores, and the annual turnover as per the profit and loss account for the immediately preceding financial year must be less than or equal to rupees 100 crores. And this company must satisfy both the conditions to be considered as a small company. If at all a company exceeds either limit, that is either the paid up capital limit or the turnover constraint limit, it ceases to be called as a small company. What you need to note here is a public company, a holding company, a subsidiary company, or a company registered under Section 8 cannot be called a small company in spite of the paid up capital or the turnover limits. Okay, so therefore, this limit, what I told you with regard to paid up capital and turnover constraint, is with effect from December 1st, 2025. Prior to this, the requirement for the paid up share capital was rupees 4 crores, which means the capital should have been less than or equal to 4 crores, and the turnover in the preceding year should have been less than 40 crores. Okay, so now this has been increased to 10 and 100 crores, like I have already explained. The main purpose of introducing this concept of small company was to reduce compliance burden on smaller businesses. So, small companies enjoy several regulatory relaxations under this concept. Okay, so some of the benefits include simplified financial reporting, reduced penalties for certain defaults, lesser compliance requirements, simplified board meeting requirements, etc. Now, this encourages entrepreneurs to formalize their businesses instead of operating informally. Okay, so for a quick recap, we have understood what is a private company, a public company, an OPC, and also small companies, Section 8 companies, and government companies. So, now we have understood all these different types of questions. Now we need to understand how exactly is a company created. Now, what are the legal steps involved in forming a company? So, in my next session, we will explore the incorporation of a company and some of the important documents that are required to form a company. So, until then, keep revising your topics. Thank you. Have a good day.